Hi, guys. I'm excited to announce our brand new podcast, The Yearbook Experience, where we discuss all sorts of topics related to yearbooks. Originally, this first podcast was geared towards the middle school audience, but after reviewing it, we thought it would be great for all grade levels. The goal of this channel is to discuss topics that take longer than our 10-minute video series. You can either watch it, listen to it, or both. If you're interested in the 10-minute video series, the link is below. We have provided video notes in the description so you can go ahead and skip to topics that are of interest to you. Enjoy! Hi, my name is Monica with Walsworth Yearbooks, and today we're having a discussion specifically focused for our middle school advisors. We tend to have a lot of content for high school, but we thought it would be important to have guest panels that are specifically dealing with middle school issues, and hopefully we can help other people that are in similar situations. Today I have Jill Chittum, who's a rep over in Fort Worth, Texas. I have Sherry Robertson, who's an advisor over at Chaparral Middle School. Jessica Spinella, an advisor in Southern California as well at Roble Intermediate. And then we have Andrew Young, who I'm going to go ahead and let Jill Chittum introduce.
I have known Andrew we just figured it out, 7 years now, from the very first day he took over as the advisor at Woodland Junior High School. He is a former customer of mine only because I've switched territories, but Andrew is a total rock star. The first day I met him, he told me that he wanted to do a middle school book that was an award winner and would compete on the national level, and he has realized that dream. Not only was he named the Arkansas Advisor of the Year and a JEA Rising Star and about any other teacher accolade that you could get, his books have also earned Crown Awards and just about every award that you can get on the state level as well. His students do some amazing work that constantly impresses me as being high caliber work, especially for middle school students. So I'm really excited to see him again today and get to learn some more from him.
Also introducing poor Carlos. Carlos, he's a rock star. He's usually our video editor and basically the West area tech person, right, Carlos?
Pretty much, yeah. Anytime technical issue with advisors, managers.
So I'm just going to go ahead and say, Sherry, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Jess can take it away after that.
Well, I am still kind of a newbie for Yearbook. I'm starting my 3rd year. So, the first year you're just surviving. I was just happy to be here and to have a book that actually sold was pretty great. But now I feel like I'm kind of got the rhythm, and then the pandemic happened and that threw a whole wrench in the situation. But I've been teaching middle school for about 13 years. Elementary, I started 7 years. So I'm just finishing up starting my 21st year of teaching. I just, when I felt like I had everything down, I became a yearbook advisor. So I thought, great, another new challenge. So I love it. I love having something new and fresh and a way to kind of get my artistic side out there, because in middle school, I don't think you always get the opportunity as much as I did in elementary. Very artistic in elementary. So it was kind of fun to have something new and a new challenge and a new way to kind of, release my creative side. So it's been fun, and I look forward to learning more, to making life even easier. So that'd be great.
Well, thank you for joining us. Jess, take it away.
Well, I'm Jess Spinella, and I'm going into my 5th book, and so not seasoned, but not new, somewhere, I don't know, in the middle. Prior to teaching Yearbook, I actually wanted to teach Yearbook my entire teaching career. And I taught digital and darkroom photography at the high school for 10 years. And then our family relocated, and my principal called me and said, when they were hiring, they were like, well, this is also a yearbook position. And I was like, oh, very excited. So I think they were just happy to have anybody to do it, but I was really eager to do it. So I actually have a graphic design background and an art background. And so to me, yearbook was always like really a cool situation. So middle school is a different animal. I'm in my 5th year. I was teaching at high school for 10. And it is really different. Like you were talking about, Monica, it's very unique. It's a whole different thing. And only having a handful of kids that repeat every year is a different beast to the high schools. Like I think they've got it easier in some ways.
What about you, Andrew? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that that Jill basically, told us everything academically, but tell us a little fun fact about you.
I'm actually my 8th year teaching, is my 7th year as an advisor, and so I've only taught 1 year where I wasn't a yearbook advisor, and so it's kind of like now it just feels like it's all I've known is being a yearbook advisor. I love it a lot. I like to run a lot. That's kind of especially during like quarantine, that was my like way to get out of the house, was I'd go for a run. And so like if you look at like I have a graph on my phone, it was like April and May shot way up because I had all this time at home now. So yeah, so that was kind of my stress reliever. And I feel like with yearbook, you need a stress reliever because if you don't, you'll go crazy some way. So yeah.
Well, I think because we could talk here for hours and hours, but I think we want to get to a couple of the questions that you had. Sherry, why don't you start with asking a couple of your questions?
I think the big one for me is kind of putting this whole picture together, like a scope and sequence. I'm wondering, like, do you have a vision that you use every year on how to kind of, I don't know, your whole schedule for like, when are you going to introduce this concept? When is this going to be due? When are you going to cover this? When are you going to do photography? When are you going to do graphic design? I'm just kind of wondering, like, a full year scope and sequence. Do you have advice for that?
I try to hold like a 3 or 4 day summer workshop from just me and my students. So it's just me, and we go to school and we have 4 days. It's usually just a few hours, so it's nothing crazy. But then that way, like, the staff gets to meet each other. We get to hang out for the first time. We do some team building stuff so they, kind of feel like they're a group going into the school year. We already kind of have some groundwork laid before the school year starts. And then at that workshop, I usually cover super basic, like, here's a camera, here's how it works, here's how you put it together. Very basic, like what goes in a yearbook, like this is the spine, this is an end sheet. Very basic, like I said, design, yearbook terminology, and just like camera basics. And then usually like the first 2 weeks of school, once I've covered that, then it's just like kind of adding on to that a little bit. This year, like I said, it was different. And so I had to kind of do all of that the first 3-ish weeks of school to try to cover all the basic stuff. And kind of as I'm covering the basics, I feel like the last few years I've had editors. And so they're kind of working on the side, talking about theme ideas and looking at things that they like. And so, I mean, they've already done this before because I had them last year in 7th grade and they're 8th graders now. And so I try to get all that basic stuff covered, and then just try to, bring in the staff with what they think and some ideas they may have, talking about the year. Is there something about this year that's special? Is it an anniversary of something? Is it, this is the first class that's going to do X, Y, Z or whatever it is. Obviously, like, we're in a pandemic. So like, that's historical. We had an election, that's historical. And so, trying to figure out what are the things that make this year special. And then, making sure our theme is kind of derived from that a little bit. And so that it is specific, for the year and for our school. And then from there, that's where we kind of jump into the ladder and what kind of secondary coverage do we want, and then spread assignments. And then basically, usually probably like mid to late September, our ladder's pretty much skeletoned out, and they're kind of working at whatever pace they need to be working. Usually my goal is by October 1, we're hitting the ground running, and you're kind of on your own at that point. Not on your own, but like the students are working on their own. If they need me, I'm there. But that's my goal. I think this year I was a little late to the game because like I was having to cover a lot of that basic stuff at the beginning when I've usually kind of already covered that.
One of the things I think really made a difference for you too, when you first took over, it was it 8th and 9th or 7th, 8th and 9th? Like 7th, 8th and 9th. 8th and 9th. And back then only 9th graders could be on the yearbook staff. And so it was that whole, like, we refresh every year. There's no students who know the processes and can help the new students. And he was able to get that changed so that he at least has a handful of editors who are repeating students. And that's something I try to suggest to all of my middle school advisors, to try to have at least a couple of students that are, maybe they're high flying 7th graders who can take yearbook as a 7th grader and an 8th grader, so that you've got some experience year over year.
That was my game changer. Was we had a grade transition in our district, and so 9th grade went to the high school, and so my junior high became 7th and 8th. And after the first year of that, I went to my principal. I was like, you've got to let me have 7th graders. Like, I'm starting over every year, and it's just, it's to do what I want to do with the yearbook program, and I need to have some returners. And he was like, okay. And also I let my returners is where I select my editors from. And so, like Jill said, the high flyers, like that's what I want to utilize and really grow them as leaders.
What about you, Jess? You were about to say something.
I mean, similar, but we use camp as our kind of workshop. I try to take as many of my 8th grade staff as I can. So I open it up to my returning group. So similar to Andrew, I do an application process. And so it's real intense, and I make it intense on purpose because I want them to have this sense of like, I'm really special. I made it. I better show up, you know? And so when they do it that way, there's kids they know, or they're like, oh, I didn't get in. We had a lot of applications, and so that filters a lot. But going to camp with all of my 8th grade staff allows for the returners and the new 8th graders to have the opportunity to do editor positions. Whereas if we didn't do camp and we didn't do that virtual portion, then the new incoming 8th graders don't get to like really dive in the same way, and they feel behind. And so it really levels the playing field, I feel like, for that 8th grade group. And there's natural leaders that emerge in that time. And so we spend a lot of time preparing for camp, for spirit days, which brings a lot of camaraderie, and it starts to build a lot of buy-in for my kids. So they get to know each other. They have a lot of fun together. We do some stuff before camp. We build spirit outfits, and then we go to camp, and then it's like this huge thing. And then when we come back, everyone kind of knows, the 8th graders at least all know each other. And then we do the first 2 days of just getting to know the 7th graders and building it up and trying to establishing immediately that we're a little family and that we work as a unit and that there's no bad ideas and that sort of stuff. And so I'm actually also a really big fan of the Walsworth curriculum. I use it. I love it. I modify it a little. I tweak it to our like situation, but I really do. I use I'm not gonna say every unit, but I use a lot of them. And so, and I don't totally follow the first 30 days. Because I'm more interested in really investing in each of the different areas. I want to spend enough time in it so that on the other side, when they're doing it, they're not still wondering about things. So I really want to invest up front and give them all of the information. I spend the first almost 2 months solid of just curriculum building. This is how we write. Here's the 300-word essays you're going to use as samples. Let's go through the radical write. I mean, I have my junior hires going through the radical write. And so like we're learning to write, we're learning photography, we're learning design. Right now we just started our Understanding Why Design Matters. So I'm really invested in the curriculum portion, and I spend a great deal of time doing that and then in the assignments that they do, I make meaningful. So they start with a topic, and by the time we get to the point where we're designing spreads, they've already done all the pieces. So it's just putting it all together at that point. So they've already written the writing, the body copy portion of their story for their coverage topic. They've already done the coverage, brainstorming. We've already got our ladder. They know what spread they're going to be working on. So it's just, they already know the secondary coverage and what it's going to look like. They already have the content for that. So we just kind of do each of the curriculum about our specifics. So everybody has their own topic they're covering, but they're just essentially grabbing all the stuff they need, taking photography about that topic. So then by the time we start to actually build spreads in month 3 or 4, and then at the end of the year, we prepare for the following year by doing the summer assignment, which we use at summer camp. So basically the theme package that we all bring to summer camp, we do that at the end of the year. So the entire former staff gets to develop, there's usually like 7 or 8 groups, and everybody does a theme project. And then we share it out, and then we decide which ones are the strongest ones. And we take those to camp, and it almost always changes. But at least they have the experience of designing a whole theme package and knowing what they're going to need to do the following year. So we don't ever go to camp empty-handed. We always go with a couple of sets of things, but it always shifts, and it's always so fun to like get the feedback from a lot of the people who are winning everything, right?
Or even from Andrew, because he's always hired him for our workshops because of his accolades. I think that's important to note. I do like what you said about that one of the things that people stress out about right now is like, I don't know what to give I don't know what kind of assignments to give my kids. Teachers feel, especially the newbies, that they have to have something done right away. And it's not really so much the case, at least in my opinion, for middle schools. You have a lot more flexibility than most high schools, and even more so in a pandemic. So if you feel like you're behind, you really are not. This is the one time that you have to focus on even more things that you probably didn't have before because of the pandemic. So like now you could take more time to learn how to do specific things in design that you wouldn't be able to do during a regular class year. So that's something that I think is important for people to remember, that it's not like every other year, and you do have that flexibility to be able to take a breather and try to see the what you've already done and not get stressed out about falling behind.
And it's an opportunity, really, Monica. Yeah. It's an opportunity because every year we have to do the same things, right? Football has to be covered, and this not anymore. We can do what we want. That's so exciting to me. I told the kids, I'm like, listen, this is fun. Here is why. And they're like, yeah, because we don't have to cover football. I mean, we can, it's fun, whatever. But we can cover things that matter. We can talk about some of the things we never have space for, because high school books have a lot of opportunity for these spotlights, student interest stories and things like that. And in a middle school book, you just don't have room for that. So this is an opportunity to get to do some of those sorts of fun things that we don't always get to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Jessica. If I could have you shout that from the rooftops of every school in the country, because what you just said hit the nail on the head. Your attitude about how this year is going to go is exactly where we need to be. This is not, oh my gosh, things aren't happening, what are we going to do? It's things are happening, they're just different, and oh my gosh, let's cover them. Let's cover the fact that kids are learning from their bedrooms or learning from the kitchen table. It's such an opportunity, and I think that mindset is key for everybody to be successable this year.
Yeah. And I think it really has forced us to think outside of the box and really look at things that we haven't ever, we still do. I'm in Arkansas, and so we have kind of been going business as usual, not usual, but we go to school 5 days a week. There's different options that you can take, but we still had football games, we still had volleyball games, basketball starts next week. So things are still happening. And so we're covering those things, but we're covering them very differently. And there's also different stories. In volleyball, after every point, they had to throw the ball to the side and they had to spray it down with this desanitizer stuff after every single point. And so we have pictures of that. And I was like, hey, make sure you get pictures of that. And that was actually some of our best pictures, because it's super interesting and you're never going to ever have that again. So there's interesting sides to it, and it does make you think outside of the box and look for things that you may not ever be able to cover like that again.
Andrew, I'm curious, what's one thing that you've covered this year that you never had a chance to do before because of the pandemic?
We have a lot of stuff about learning options. And so we have a 5-day option, a 4-day option, a hybrid, which is a 2-day option, and then an all virtual option. And then our district has a virtual academy. So you can do virtual academy at it's another school, but then you can still play athletics for Woodland. And so you really have 5 options. And so just covering those, and just learning from home. Where do you learn at home? That was one of the sidebars that one of my editors was working on today, was do you have a table in the kitchen? Do you have a desk in your room? Is it another room completely? Do your parents wake you up at the same time, or do you get to sleep in? And so it's just and everyone's so different in with what they're doing. And it's just,
some people are out of state. We're virtual, and I have a kid in Hawaii right now, and a kid in Colorado, and one in Oregon. And I'm like, this is a spread. People learning from all,
everywhere.
We are all Panthers, right? But we're learning from all these different locations. And when will that ever happen again?
Right.
What other question did you have, Jess, that you want to make sure that we covered today?
I am a pretty spunky personality. I have a pretty outgoing, as you can probably tell, and that sort of happy personality. But I want to find ways, and I'm wondering what you all are doing for like celebrating yearbook and having fun in yearbook. And to me, I'm in my 5th year. I'm figuring it out virtually. We're gonna have a great book, whatever. For me, I want to make sure the kids are having a really good time. And like, how can we bring the parties back to yearbook? And right now, that social portion feels like it's really missing. And I'm wondering, one of my kids said, what about a Netflix viewing party? And I guess you can go on Netflix. There's like a thing and you can chat while you're watching something together. And it's like and I thought, oh, that could be cool. But are you guys doing anything to celebrate holidays with your staff, or any way to like have a lot of fun with them socially? What are you guys doing?
We're playing Among Us. I don't know if you've been playing this game or you know anything about it, but it's not a holiday thing, but I'm telling you, it's the best choice I made all year long, because my kids are so into this game, and
They're
it's
obsessed.
yeah, totally obsessed. Once I said, hey guys, let's play Among Us, all of a sudden it was all like, yeah, okay. And now they're like so much more open, and they're eager to like participate, because they know if we have like 10 minutes of class at the end that's extra, I'll let them go on and we'll play a couple of games.
Good idea.
I don't have a ton because all my yearbook staff is at some point they're at school. I mean, at some they're 2 days a week, some are there 4 or 5 days a week. But something I read the other day was, it was like another advisor on Twitter, and she said like they do like Kahoots and stuff, like music Kahoots or whatever, and like she'll play a song and you have to guess the song, and it's only like a 5-minute deal, but it's just something kind of fun they can do at the beginning or they can do at the end, just to kind of get something going that's, like you said, fun and different from the normal work they're going to be doing all day.
Perfect.
Well, I know one of the questions that I have for the 3 of you is marketing, and how are we going to sell this book? Do people even know that we're still having a yearbook this year, because we're not in school in a traditional manner, and what that looks like? So I would love for you to share some ideas, especially for our newer middle school advisors who are like, what, I have to sell this book too, not just put it together.
Right.
Do you have any tips for them?
The parent email program, the PEP program, like to plug that, like that was a huge game changer for us. And that's like, you don't have to do anything, like it's done for you. And like, I can tell like when an email goes out, because I'll look and I'll be like, oh, we sold 10 books last night. Didn't even do anything. It was just because they sent the email, type of thing. We have like our administrators send out like weekly announcements to parents. They email them out. And so I always make sure there's a yearbook and a yearbook ad thing somewhere on the announcement, so parents see that. And then I also, because we are back at school, we have TVs around our school. And so I always have a slide, like one of the announcement slides always says something about yearbook. And we always try to plug like photos and stuff that we've taken of either classes or games or whatever. And actually this year, I don't know why it was more this year than ever before, but like after we would post a game, like a football game or whatever, then like all these football players started following our account. And then like we post pictures from volleyball, well, all these volleyball players started following our account. And like we had posted stuff before in previous years, but I don't know if they're just like so starved to see a sense of normalcy. And that is a sense of normalcy. There's like, oh my gosh, pictures from the game or whatever. And volleyball, they limited, like no students could attend a volleyball game. It was only parents. And so they didn't really get to see that. And so getting your followership up on any of your social media and then using your social media to market your book is also a game changer. That really helps a lot, I think. Those are kind of the big ones for us.
And just before anybody jumps in, I think it's important to note that even though people are afraid of asking admin for this information because they're always going to say, no, we can't give those to vendors, but something to think about is that every single school has to give the same information to the photography company to be able to take your mugs. So we don't solicit or do any of that. In fact, we are the only company that I know of that we sign a waiver if needed that says we're not going to resell this to a third party. And it's important for people to push this. It's a lot harder for you to do the marketing and get stressed out at the end of the year because you have books to sell than to just get it done, make it happen, and let us do the hard work. Because again, we hire professional people to handle this. If you guys were doing it, if the school was doing a great job, then we wouldn't have to have this need to have a PEP program. So
I do similar things to Andrew. I take it a little bit further. with regard to email. and we have a system. I don't know if all the schools have this or not, but we have a system where the principal can send out, well, first of all, I make him do an individual email for yearbook only. So I don't want to be tucked into the rest of the announcements. I want my own email. So I have a whole like Google Doc that has this date, send this message, this date, send this message, like a template. And then I just change it around a little bit each year, and I send it to him in advance. And then I also remind him the day before it needs to go out. But in addition to that, we have this software, and I'm guessing everybody has it because they send out phone calls, and we can also get text messages, right? So a lot of our parents anymore are using their cell phones for everything, and they're not really looking at their email as frequently as they're looking at a text message. So as we start to get a little bit closer to deadlines and like online sales ending, and when things shift up to the next amount or whatever, I have the principal shoot out a text message to all the parents. And that is very, very effective, especially with those tributes. I went from like 12, and then in 2 weeks time with text messaging, I made my principal do like 3 text messages over the course of 2 weeks. We went from 12 to 85. So texting was really effective, highly effective. And so it was just another layer to that marketing.
And something that you hit on is so important there, because I have so many people who will say, well, it's in the principal's newsletter that goes out every week. Well, there's about 15 other things that are in there. And a lot of times yearbook ends up being at the bottom of the list for whatever reason. And so I love that you go the extra step of we're scheduling yearbook only specific emails from the principal so that when parents get it, that's what they see and they go right for it. I think that's genius.
It's really helpful, and really like intentional subject lines too, like last day to buy, like all that crazy madness, you only have 36 hours, don't miss out, like those silly, ridiculous things are really effective.
I think it's good that what you all are saying is so important, because people give up after just sending one email. They're like, well, I sent an email. I send it once a month. What more do they want? I'm like, you have to touch people. We call it pick 6, but you have to have a minimum of 6 different ways of communicating with people, because everybody's different. If I get 1 million emails a day, a lot of emails, and for something to really catch my eye, it has to be a wow factor. So usually if I'm saturated with emails, I will check a text message before I check an email message. And then for parents that are home, what do? They'd rather probably have a text message if possible.
One of the things that I do is I use our teachers. So my language arts department is all full of great people. And so they're kind of my go-to, because if I am in that department, and so I get to meet with them twice a month. And so anytime I need help yearbook wise, I go through them. Sorry. And they're the ones that help me with marketing and surveys, because not all the kids will complete things, and so they help make it an assignment. So if like I need a survey, they'll make it an assignment through language arts. And with our flyers, like, so my students will make flyers, and because it's student generated, my principal I think is probably more apt to help out, send that out, because it was student generated, and the teachers also will send that out. And so they kind of help market it for me. And at least I know that every single kid in the school is hearing that message, because of us being home and online. We cannot do an all call. We don't have homeroom. We don't have anything that, puts all of us together at the same time. So at least I know that going through the language arts teachers, every single child will be exposed to that marketing.
That's smart.
I've had some of my schools have asked other teachers in the building to put the Buy Your Yearbook at Yearbook Forever link in their teacher signatures, even if they're not the yearbook teachers, because so much communication is happening via email right now between parents and teachers, that's just another place where if you can put this in your signature for me for a couple of weeks, maybe it'll hit somebody that hasn't seen it yet.
And Canvas too. Is anyone else using Canvas? I'm guessing a lot of us are, no?
We do Google Classroom, which is what I was going to say, that we put on the Google Classroom, we'll put the flyers.
And if you have Canvas, anyone listening, we have a way of messaging our entire student body, because we're yearbook. So I message them there as well. So I hit students and parents through email and text, and kids through Canvas. and that's pretty effective too.
That's an awesome idea. I love that. A lot of people in Texas are using Canvas, I know. And one thing too, I know, in normal times when you have large crowds at school events, we always encourage people to have yearbook staff t-shirts that say on the back, yearbook staff, and then put yearbookforever.com on there. And even though people, large crowds can't be there, the parents who have children who will be pictured in the yearbook because they're involved in those activities are at those activities in person. So if there's a way to still do a staff t-shirt for your staff this year, they can't be together in person, but that's a bonding experience if they can, choose a t-shirt and design it so that it promotes what you're doing on the back. Then, that's a little walking billboard around those sidelines when they're taking photos at events.
Yep, that's what we have. The back of our shirt say buy yearbook at yearbookforever.com, and then we have our social media handles on the back too. So then, like when parents see that, then they know to look at our yearbook Instagram for photos from the game or whatever. And then I also have, at games, whenever they do announcements or when they announce from like the PA or whatever, I have them make a yearbook announcement for buying a yearbook at some point in the game. And then also an ad, like a yearbook ad announcement at some point in the game. And so if parents are there, then they're hearing it. And then a lot of times it's funny because when they'll make that announcement, everyone like picks up their phone and like starts because they've gotten the pep emails or they've seen something about yearbook and they're like, oh, I need to do that because, and I usually, like you said, like try to make it urgent sounding. And so they know, hey, the price goes up and at midnight on Friday, and this is Thursday because our games are on Thursday. But so yeah, anytime, like you said, like they're in a big group, if whoever is, making announcements or who's calling plays or doing a live stream or whatever, that was another thing. We live streamed all of our high school live streamed all of our districts events. And so they live streamed our junior high games. And I had whoever was live streaming make an announcement. So if they were watching it at home on the live stream, then they still got the same announcement as if you were at the game hearing it too. So any way to just try to get, as many ears to hear your thing as possible.
And I like that idea. That made me think about like another marketing tactic is if maybe that could be a project, having your kids create some kind of a logo or something or a t-shirt that they can make, they could wear every Friday that has that information, like, go to yearbookforever.com or wherever it is that they're going to go purchase their yearbook, so that they can have that. I think that there's also, and I'm not sure because school sites are a little bit different when they're using Zoom, but like where my name is, I was thinking there's a possibility that we can put like yearbookforever.com right under that, like buy your yearbook right under the name. Instead of Monica Loera, it says go to yearbookforever.com to buy your yearbook. Like what kind of, because this is our area right here that people see every single day. What can we add? Like, is it a banner that we can add somewhere there that people see constantly? Is it something that we put through our chat that every day it's just there? Don't forget to purchase your yearbook. A Google background.
Zoom virtual background. That's what I was just thinking too.
Virtual background.
That's what we need. Then you could have all your yearbook staff members have that virtual background for their Zooms.
Yeah,
that could be a project. Oh my God, that would be such a cool project. Tell us whoever has the best virtual background every Friday, like somebody gets some kind of award. Like maybe that's a way of celebrating people. This week we're gonna work on a virtual background to help promote the yearbook sales and ad sales. It'd be something that you can ask your peers to say, hey, every Monday or every Friday, have it as a background, like help us out, like for whatever it is. And we'll give you whoever, like maybe it's your admin that requests that. And even a $5 gift card to an admin, like for coffee break is big. And that's going to help you in the long run. So
yeah, or do the same thing, a contest for your fellow teachers. If you'll put up a Zoom background that says yearbook something on there, we'll put your names in a hat and draw for gift cards for something. Or
Andrew, I know you're a professional, but is there something that maybe these two beautiful ladies can help you with?
I always and I think it was one of the questions that I saw in my email was just like, how do you keep on pressing upon students that you have a deadline coming up? Like, you need to be on top of this. You need to keep working. You need to keep going. You need to keep working. You need to keep going. What are some ways that you motivate your staffs to kind of jump on the ball?
I've been using, this year I started using Google Form to kind of do check-ins that have been helpful for me, because I too I struggle with how to kind of hold them accountable. So that has been, I think, I don't know if it's been motivating for them, but I'm able to use that as a grade. And we all know that if there's a grade attached to it, they're far more motivated to get it done. And the Walsworth checklist that I saw, I took from it and condensed it and put it in a Google form. And so now they have deadline dates for certain things, and then they have to fill out that form. And then we have a meeting on it. So we have like a conference. And this is the first time I've done that this year. And I've definitely seen a lot of students more motivated to get their work done on time, since I'm attaching a grade to that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I grade everything. It's daunting, but I'll tell you what, it keeps them accountable. And because I have been very hardcore, I guess, about the application process, the type of student that I've enrolled cares about their grades. And so at least the majority, every now and then someone gets in and I'm like, how did I miss that this person? You know the people I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
There's like everyone in the class is like driven to succeed, and there's like 2 kids that are blowing everything off, but it's not normal. But grades are definitely effective for them, and so when they don't turn something in, they're penalized, not in a negative way, because they can always adjust it, right? So like I always give them the opportunity to fix it. You don't meet this deadline, as long as it's not a hard stop, we're okay. But I mean, when we have a hard stop, like that's trouble, and your name is on it. So what can I say? You're going to be the one embarrassed. I kind of let them know it's your book. It's not my book. It's your book. So you don't want to be the one that misspelled your neighbor's name. That would be weird. So.
Well, I think it's super important too to have mini deadlines throughout the process, because especially with middle school, students who've never done this before, they've probably never heard the words journalism before, and they're trying to do this content. What I always used to say is, you start learning social studies and English and math from kindergarten, and then all of a sudden you're in yearbook and you're learning this new content. And they can sit down and look at a blank page, and if you just say, okay, you're in charge of the volleyball spread and I'll see you in 2 months when it's done, they don't know what to do. It's that whole big picture thing. So giving them, like, I loved, Jessica, what you said at the beginning, that your training assignments for people are on the subjects they're putting on their pages, because that gives them many deadlines to hit. And then when it's time to design the spread, they've got all the pieces.
Well, and it's not perfect. I mean, they'll write their story and it will be like very much a rough draft, right? But they have something that they can put in, and then when it's a rough draft that they did in week or month 2, but they're designing 3 months later, they have a different handle on Yearbook now. So, you know what I mean? Then they shift it and they're like, oh, this story can be so much better. Here's what and they've read other people's, right? So it's just a means to an end. And it is mini deadlines in a lot of ways. It's, you're building your spread along the way. You just don't realize it's what you're doing. And then when you're there, you've got them mostly done. And then you have to start from the beginning and do another one, but at least.
Once you got the skills at that point.
Exactly.
One thing that I tried this week with a school is, I was just curious to see if it was going to work. It was deadline season for them. It's not really their hard deadline, but it was the student deadline. And because they decided to extend their delivery for summer, all their deadlines are pushed way further out, which is nice for coverage purposes. But then the advisor's like, well, what am I going to do, for all these other months before I can really grade them and keep them busy? And so what we did today is, okay, so every single person, we couldn't do every single one, but we're going in order. They're going to do a presentation, like every single spread that they finish, they're going to be presenting to the entire class, and the class is going to critique their spread. Like, if you were an outsider, what would you love about this, and what would you improve? And so that we only got through 2, just because it required everybody to have a conversation, but it does buy you time. And it also was really fun to be able to see that it puts the person on the I guess it puts them on blast, I guess what the kids are calling it these days, but that way they can see people that are doing their job, that were doing what they're supposed to, and the ones that are lacking, it kind of makes them say, like, well, maybe I need to jazz it up a little bit. Yeah, because I'm going to have to present in front of my peers.
Critique elevates
yeah.
the book anytime. You get people together and you have more than the 3 kids that are working on it look at it. It just elevates the book. They see errors, or I know a photo that would be better for that, right? It's so helpful. Critique is invaluable. I love that.
We used to do that when I was a yearbook and newspaper advisor, and I called it positive peer pressure. It's exactly what Monica was talking about. If you're the kid who's like, oh, I'm not going to turn in my rough draft today, because what used to happen is we'd have rough draft day where they'd print it out and I would read it all. Well, they knew I was the only one that was going to see it, but we started reading their rough drafts aloud on the projector. And it only takes 1 or 2 times for a student to go, man, my stuff is really not good compared to those other people. I need to work a little harder. So it was excellent positive peer pressure. And also it just helps everybody learn. So if you're seeing something that's a constant mistake on pages, when you show it in front of everybody and they notice it in the critique, then you're not having to correct it on every single spread you turn in, because as soon as you're done critiquing, they go back to their page, make the correction, and then it's good when it pops up in the next round of critiques.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we do photo critiques every other week, and so my staff has to shoot 3 events a month, and so whether that's a game, if that's they went and took pictures of math class, if that's whatever, but every other week every student pulls up 1, sometimes 2 photos, and then they have to talk about it, and they have to talk about the photo composition and why they like this photo, why they think it's good, and then everyone gets to talk about it. Well, what if you had done it from this angle, or what if you done it from this angle, ever? And then, and like you said, Jill, like if they see everyone's photos, like, oh my gosh, like, wow, all my photos were dark compared to that, like, why, and then and like I even saw, it was the first time we did it this year, I didn't tell my photo editor to do this, but she was like, hey, I noticed like I think one of your settings is off. Can we talk about that really quick? And then she wasn't setting her aperture. She was only setting her ISO and her shutter speed. And she was like, I forgot where to change it. She's a little B 7th grader. So she was like, oh, let me show you. And so she grabbed a camera and she showed her how to do it. And so I probably wouldn't have noticed that, just me, but because she was doing it on the screen, and it was like both of her photos were looked that way. And then she was like, hey, can I help you? And she was like, oh, yes. And so photo critiques are really good too, because also for me, my strongest photographers have always been ones that probably knew nothing about photography when they started out. And so that's also why I'm a big proponent of, especially in middle school, let them try everything. Everyone needs to write, everyone needs to design, everyone needs to take photos. Because my best ones, and ones that have won Photo of the Year finalists for NSPA or state awards or whatever, or Walsworth photo contests, like those are ones that they'd never picked up a camera until they walked into Yearbook. And so letting them have those opportunities to try everything and find out what they're good at, what they like, and maybe not knew that they were good at those things, that's something it's really cool to see someone grow at something that they didn't even know that was a lane for them to take.
Well, I feel like I've learned a lot from all of you tonight, and you just have like reinvigorated me and motivated me just hearing your passion for what you're doing with your students every day. And I think it's so important to have good educators like you who put the trust of creating this history book in the hands of 12 and 13-year-olds in some cases, and they come in, like Andrew said, not knowing anything about how to put together a yearbook. And by the time they're done, they've got something that has their blood, sweat, and tears involved in it. And I commend you for really, trusting them to take on that work. Because I think sometimes middle school advisors, they feel like it's easier for them to just kind of take over and do it themselves to get it done. And so much learning is happening in your classrooms every day with what they're doing. Critical thinking skills and interviewing skills. I always used to tell my students, I don't care what you don't have to be a journalist when you graduate from college. If you're going to be a doctor, you have to know how to interview people about their symptoms. So the skills that you're using in this class will take you far in any career that you choose to do. And so y'all are giving them like the strong base to start from, and it's just been great to hear from you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your lives. I know that for you, Jill and Andrew, it's a little bit later than for us, but still thank you so much for giving us your insight and inspiration, because it's easy to be depressed in this day and age. It's easy to feel defeated, but I think it's so important for people to hear that it really is a perspective issue. People need to like for the moment in time that they're with their students, they need to project a different kind of energy, because what you're giving out to those students is what they're going to give back to you. And if you can give them that, like that happiness for even that hour of time, they're going to produce something so much better for you. And then your yearbook experience is going to be better. And then the rest of your classes are going to be better too. And your rep is going to be in a better mood. So like, what more do you want? What more do you want? Thank you for listening or watching our podcast. If you're interested in being part of the series or have any suggestions for future topics, please let us know and comment below. Subscribe and share.